Apparently I'm live. Hello guys, anyone here? Hmm. We can begin this discussion, okay? Alright. Welcome everyone. This is Jessie Lee, and today we're going to be having a topic discussion about synchronicity. A lot of people, they go through their daily lives and they're wondering what path should they take. Are they on the right path? Did they make the right decisions? And it really doesn't matter if people are believing in a God or even if they're atheist. Everyone's always seemingly looking for a sign. Well, synchronicities, or sometimes known as coincidences, the universe or God will hand these out to you as signs. Now, what are coincidences and synchronicities? Patterns. Simply put, they are patterns. Things that either come up day to day that are similar to one another, or maybe even two instances happening at the same time that would not necessarily meet in the middle. And yet, for a very profound moment in your life, somehow they do. And they produce an amazing revelation generally in your life. These signs can be anything from you're on the right path to you're not on the right path. And if they show that you're not on the right path, they're usually pretty clear as to why and what path to take. So today, a main one that I'd like to talk about in my personal life of hidden synchronicities is what I like to call the sneeze of truth. Now, a few of you who had watched my previous video, you may have remembered a man in the background sneezing like crazy when I was in the middle of explaining a certain part of my story, my testimony. Let's rewind. So in that storyline, a man started sneezing over and over again. When I began to touch base on how the invitation that God was giving me to come and follow him really didn't feel like an invitation, but instead it really felt more like a trap. I was revealing at that moment one of my deeper hidden truths and root causes as to why I didn't just quit doing meth right then and there after I'd had the dream, and why it took me 2 more weeks before I would come out of it. It was a very personal root and truth of my mental and emotional standing about God. In that moment, as I'm expressing this deep truth, here comes a man sneezing. Okay, what does this have to do with synchronicity? Well, in my life, I've noticed some very interesting things over the last few years. When I get into very, very serious, deep discussions about spiritual truths, universal truths even, it seems 98% of the time that I get into these topics with somebody, either the person I'm speaking with starts sneezing, or more often than not, it's a person walking past in the moment that we're having this discussion. Now, at first, nothing registered. Like, I wasn't really paying attention. It took a lot of these moments before my mind started noticing this synchronicity happening. And I began to wonder, is the body, the actual physical body, allergic to real spiritual truth? Now, the more that I looked at this, the more I became convinced that this really was going on. Now, I'm not saying that the person walking behind me at that time wasn't allergic to something in the air. He could have been. It's very, very possible. But I also believe that there is a such thing called timing, and that God is in control of this timing, that He's able to hold your sneezes off until a right time, when someone else may be thinking in their heads or speaking out loud to somebody a deep interpersonal truth or a deep universal truth. I believe that maybe it's possible that God waits for our bodily reactions until the moments which our spirit and soul needs to be made aware that we're having a hard time with something here. There was a while, a couple of years ago, where if I thought deeply that God loves me no matter what, I would start sneezing. I'm not kidding with you. I would start sneezing. And I wouldn't know why. And Oscar, could you please? Sorry, there's another dog and mine likes to go off. I would start sneezing at the very idea that God cared that deeply about me, that He would never leave me nor forsake me. And it was strange, and I think that that's probably around the time frame that I started really realizing that there might be a synchronicity happening between the body's physical reaction to so-called allergens in the air and the timing to the thoughts or conversations taking place in that moment. As I began to look at that, I began to ask myself, really, why do I sneeze every time that I get into this particular thinking mode? It was about that moment where I began to wonder, is that body allergic? And if it is, why am I allergic to such an idea? What an amazing idea, right? Why be allergic to a truth that someone loves you no matter what? So it sent me on a journey. That question and that paying attention to what was happening in that moment sent me on an interesting journey to question it further. And I discovered that, in fact, I really didn't at that time believe, even though I had been clean for so many years by this point, I really didn't believe that he could love me no matter what. And that lack of belief, I think, had produced the body's natural reaction of allergens in the air. Now, mind you, I don't have allergies. I'm not affected by stuff in the air. And so when this started taking place, that's really why I really started looking at this. I also noticed that when I delved deeper into the question of, am I really allergic to an idea? I got to see that once I came to accept that truth over time, when I got deep into that thought again, the sneezing didn't come anymore. Another synchronicity that I'd like to bring up that I've noticed is when I'm talking to some people about my belief system or God, whatever, and I hit on topics that seem uncomfortable, such as doing more than just reading scripture and going to church, but that we were meant to actually do and complete the physical labors that Christ was doing in his ministry before he gave his life. And I've noticed that there were a lot of Christians, when I spoke these things towards them, we would only be in a discussion for about a minute and a half, 2 minutes. You could see them getting shifty and almost fidgety. And suddenly, they speak up, I have to go to the bathroom. And didn't matter, if it was bladder or bowel. There was an interesting time where quite a few interactions with uncomfortable moments of facing one's reality and how they live their spiritual lives, how I live my spiritual life, seemed to cause this reaction in the body to have to go to the bathroom. Kind of almost associated in the same sense as I got so scared I peed myself, or wow, you scared the crap out of me. Nervousness, dogs that they get nervous, they have to go to the bathroom. I've noticed this synchronicity take place too. I have watched my own body go through that synchronicity when someone is giving me a correction. Maybe I got out of pocket, overstepped a boundary. And so someone corrects me, and let's say that it might have been a little bit harsh. Suddenly I have to go to the bathroom at that moment. So these are things, personally, that I have found paying attention to my spiritual walk over the last few years that have been coming up a lot more, so much that I really can't sit there and say anymore in good conscience that these subjects are completely unrelated to what's spiritual. That the body function, the sneezing, the having to go to the bathroom during moments of delivery of truth, or correction, I cannot any longer say that these things aren't connected. I do believe they are. I believe that our bodies are not just vehicles for who we are to reside in while we're here. I believe that our bodies have these sensory organs, inward and outwardly, in order to tell us what's up. How can we make this visit to Earth a more harmonious visit? How can we refine ourselves? How can we learn to embody not just the image of God, but His likeness? Now, I know some of you may believe that God might be female. God, to me, honestly, is neither male nor female. I believe that the creator of everything that lives and everything that we can see, energy, all of it, I believe that the creator is above engenderment. And that engenderment comes out of His wholeness, her wholeness, love's wholeness. Let us refer to God as just plainly the entity of love. Maybe less confusing for some people in that manner. And the entity of love is never engendered. The entity of love doesn't see gender. And the entity of love also doesn't keep hold of your mistakes. If anything, the entity of love, if at all, is looking at your mistakes, it's looking at your mistakes in order to help you overcome. And I believe that the entity of love, who I call God, I also call by a name, Jesus, throws those synchronicities at us to wake us up, to help us view not just ourselves. Hey, am I on my side to you, Gio, by the way? Because I tried to do a panoramic, but I'm not sure if it's working right. Especially when you just gave me your comment there. This is going to be a funny looking video. Okay, I'm going to turn myself up. Sorry, guys. Still learning, right? Okay, so I believe that the entity of love is constantly trying to get us to see the world that we're in. Sweet, thanks, Gio. Thanks for showing up, bro. You're the only one here right now. Love is always trying to draw us back. Love is always trying to get us to be more positive. Our creative power works best when we aren't afraid, when we're not self-conscious. Self-conscious is a little different in my mind than self-aware. I think self-conscious really comes from the ego, and it makes you feel all nervous and such. While self-aware helps you see your flaws, yet doesn't let you go so deep to keep you from working out those flaws. Self-awareness puts kind of a trampoline under you so that when you're viewing your flaws, your mistakes, and even the mistakes and flaws of those in the world around you, you don't ever hit this rock at the bottom. You bounce back up and you see it from a higher perspective at that point. And I believe that love throws out synchronicities to bring us there. It's like a trampoline. It's like saying, hey, you went this way, you should go this way. Or, hey, you're doing great, keep going. So we talked about the sneeze of truth. We also talked about the bowel and bladder wanting to wake up during the moments of speaking about truth. Let's talk about some other synchronicities, some other hidden personal synchronicities that may even be general for most people. How about when the penny is heads up, it's good luck? You guys have heard that. Okay, well, for me personally, I've never been a big believer in luck. So, in my mind, synchronistically, I never found throughout my whole life a single penny heads up. Ever. Silver change, yes, but not the whole penny thing. It was always tails up. Well, there was one time in my 6.5-year journey out here on the street where I started serving God. For the first time in my whole life, I found a penny heads up. And my immediate reaction was not, oh, that's good luck. Remember, I don't believe in luck. To me, luck is what you make. You make it. But when I saw that penny heads up, instead, the first thing I said was, God's winking at me. And then I also said, tails up is God hearing me. Later on, it became heads up was God sees, tails up is God hears. And what's interesting is that when I put those labels on the whole penny thing, I began to find a lot of pennies heads up from that moment on, guys. And tails up. And strangely enough, they would come around with particular year dates, on them that might be synchronistic to a moment that I was either remembering about or numbers that seem to mean something to me that I, for some reason, am drawn to without exactly knowing why, but I'm drawn. And as I had labeled the penny thing as no longer being about luck, but about God seeing. Heads up all the time, lots of times. Let's see if I can think of anything off the top of my head more. Okay. Shooting stars. Now, this last meteor shower that we're in the midst of, where I am, y'all know I'm homeless. Where I sleep at night, it's not so dark that you could see all the stars. Like, maybe the stars you can see where I sleep at are the brightest stars. So the main ones, you know? And all the little tiny stars that you'd be able to see in the really, really, really dark areas where there's no lights and it's like wilderness. You can't see those where I sleep at. So to see the meteor shower where I sleep, it's pretty much a no-go. Too much light. Well, the other night I had some stuff going on in my mind. And I could feel the negative thought patterns wanting to come and take place. And the anxieties. And it wasn't easy, but I took control anyway of my thoughts, even though emotionally I didn't quite feel that way yet. I took control and I said, no. Build up a different scenario in your mind. So I built a different scenario in my mind, a more inviting scenario, a more relaxed one, a more loving one, a more forever kind of scenario. And I remember after thinking this scenario through that I said to myself, I didn't speak out loud, I was inside me saying, you know, this may be delusional thinking, but I'm also just trying not to give in to the foolishness of negative thinking. So I don't know if this is delusional, but I don't want to feel negative. In that moment that I thought those thoughts, this bright-ass shooting star, just huge tail, super bright, kind of almost hurt my eyes actually, happened right in that moment, as soon as I finished the word foolishness. And without having control on myself, a giant gasp came out. I was like, and my eyes went wide, and I was stunned. My jaw was dropped, and I remember thinking, oh my God, is that a sign? Is that a sign? I think that was a sign. And in that moment, a medium-tailed star shoots across. Not as bright as the first, but definitely visible. And I gasped again. I'm like, it's a sign. It's a sign. And as soon as I think that, a third one. Very short. And if I had not been looking in the same direction as the first two, I would have totally missed it because it was, boom, that quick. It was, zoop. Nothing like the first two. And I remember going to bed elated that moment. Elated that this synchronicity took place during internal thinking. Not speaking out loud, not using verbal vibration, but only the mental and the emotional aspects. And it's as if the sky responded to me. Now, since that moment, I have been in an amazing mood. It's not to say that negative thought patterns haven't tried to come up and wrestle my emotions down to the ground. It's not to say that at all. They definitely have. Yet somehow there was something so realistic in that moment with the star and my thinking pattern. It was so profound to me, very much like my testimony of my dream that got me away from meth. That I haven't been able to let go of that first initial reaction. So when these negative thoughts come into my head, it's almost like an automatic reflex even for my brain to shoot back to that synchronicity. And makes me stop the negative self-talk, makes me stop believing what the enemy has to say to me, makes me start believing that I am lovable, even if I don't always outwardly appear like it sometimes. And it just blows my mind how little random, or what seems to the world as random, but to us, come on guys, to us, we know it's not random. We know it's placed strategically and divinely as signposts. But to the world, it's random. And it's amazing how these seemingly little random events can change a person's entire perspective and way of thinking and way of feeling. And it can plunge them to the darkest depths, or it can bring them up to the highest heights. Now, enough about my personal stuff. I'm interested in finding out what your experiences with your hidden personal synchronicities, your personal synchronistic language. God is speaking to you. I want to know your experiences. Gio, are you still there? Who's there watching me? I do see one. Why don't you type in what... Hey, there you are. Why don't you give me a type in about some synchronicities you've noticed? And let the rest of the viewers from later, let them see what you have to say. Banter back and forth on this. Meeting of the minds, right? While we're waiting, another synchronicity I've noticed is, there we go. When you're in the middle of telling somebody a truth that could change their life, such as right now, it seems that the king of this world, who is not the Christ, but the enemy, it seems like the king of this world has decided to move things in the earth to get you to stop hearing it. So, you've been having migraines lately. Hey, do you know how I can pull that chat back up? So I can see? Oh, wait, I think there it is. Gio says, I've had a migraine lately, and some of the dreams from the past come back. Bottom line, God is telling me to stop being lazy. Ah, dreams. Reoccurring dreams. Excellent. Reoccurring dreams are definite signs of synchronicity, guys. And migraines. If you're not prone to migraines, and you're suddenly getting these migraines, I have learned to interpret this as a sign that, yes, God is giving you a warning. Draw back from a pursuit of something. Sometimes we pursue knowledge in wrong areas. some conspiracy theories. And when we do those things, we can tax our soul, because our soul's food is love and light. Conspiracy theories are not love and light, even though they might be put out by well-meaning people who really seem to care that the world is blind and they want to wake them up. But really, a lot of conspiracy theorists are out there fear-mongering. And when they're fear-mongering, it's not because they want to make you scared, it's because they're scared. Now, when we watch too much of this or read too much of this, and we take this into our soul and our being, our body is a very sensitive instrument that tells us in the beginning, hey, this isn't good. Hey, wrong path. One of those ways, migraines on a consistent basis. Your vehicle is warning you, engine check. Check what you're putting into your system. When you put in dark stuff into your system, you can cause migraines. When you think dark stuff, you can cause migraines. Your dream. What kind of symbology have you been having in your dream, Gio? I'm very interested to find out. I love symbology. Another form of synchronicity is in symbolism. And I'm interested because reoccurring is a big deal. And if you don't want to mention what it is, that's okay. Just type in private, and we'll have a private discussion later. Running and fighting from the rulers of this world. Okay. Conspiracy theories lately, Gio? Okay, so then the other thing might well have to do with a way of thinking about your life. The rulers of this world are not in your dream. They're not people, even though they may present themselves as people in your dream. If you were to take each ruler of this world that shows up in your dream and dissect its personality, in its personality, you will find something within yourself that you have been hanging on to or meddling with. Such as, let's say that, let's say you have a drug addiction. This is just a really simple and very plain Jane example. Let's say that you have a drug addiction and you, deep down inside, you want to quit, but at the conscious layer of your mind, you haven't thought about that yet. You're only thinking that your next big fix, that's what's going to happen. Well, let's say that, deep down inside, it's starting to shake up. So your brain, your mind, your soul, and your body, they work together to create this portal in your dreams. And they may throw weird things in them, like a reoccurring dream of watching the same episode over and over again of Breaking Bad. Not different episodes, the same episode over and over again. And it may focus on a specific scene. And then you wake up, you're like, why am I having dreams about Breaking Bad? Blah, blah, blah. It could be a synchronistic moment trying to show you the next part of your life that needs changing. The rulers of this world are symbols in dreams to what you are holding on to and what has a hold over you. It could be cigarettes. It could be the way that you see friends and how they view you. You may have an addiction to approval. The format of how these dreams shows up, daytime, nighttime, these mean something too. The fight, the struggle in the dream, conflict, is a symbol inside of you that you are having trouble either letting go of specific past belief systems, or you're having trouble accepting new belief systems. Our dreams are amazing. They're probably the biggest, I would have to say, the biggest range of synchronistic language that God/universe uses. And they can teach us a lot about our inner nature. You don't do well with stress, Gio. And yes, well, if you did blow up chat, it would make this live video way more interesting, bro. You're the only one here. So you might as well blow it up. Give our viewers later on something to really eat. Let's give them some food, brother. So go ahead, blow it up. I mean, unless it's too personal to you. That's the only reason I would say no. Wow, I can't believe we're at 43 minutes. I didn't even think I was going to last 15 on this topic. Thanks for showing up, Gio. So, while I'm waiting for Gio here. Cool. I'll give you guys an example of a dream I've had as a reoccurring nightmare in my teenage years. So, I had these reoccurring dreams that I'm running away from something. And it's always down either a dark sewer tunnel or an alley or a street. But it's always dark outside. I'm always running away from something. As I got a little older, those dreams morphed more. And whatever it was I was running from that I couldn't see in the previous dreams started taking a shape. Usually into the shape of packs of dogs, running and chasing after me, foaming at the mouth, barking, barking, barking. It was interesting because at the end of each time of those dreams, the dream always ended the same. I'd stop somehow being scared. I'd be tired of being scared. And at that point, I would turn around, I would put my hand out and speak and say, "Stop." And at that moment, the dogs would and then sit and become pettable and no longer frothing at the mouth. Sometimes the dream would have one dog. Sometimes the dream would have 3 or 4 dogs. All different breeds, didn't matter. Now, at first I thought it was because I have a fear of dogs, which I kind of did back then. But anytime that I thought that that was it, that was why I'm having this dream, never sat right with me. It always felt like I was just throwing a blanket over the truth. So, at that point, I started realizing that these dogs in my dreams were just symbols. They were symbols of the different insecurities that I personally had. Insecurities with home, insecurities with school, insecurities with friends. Not a problem, Gio. These insecurities would present themselves as rabid dogs in my dreams. Funny thing is that reoccurring dreams, they will stop after a while. And they will stop for one of 2 reasons. One, you listened and you changed your scenario. Or 2, you ignored it long enough that the inner you decides, I'm going to take a break on trying to warn you. I'm going to let you deal with the consequences of the external world for a while before I contact you again. I believe that our dreams are another way God uses his still small voice to guide us. And when we won't listen, we're basically putting cotton balls in our ears over time. And the more cotton balls you're going to put in your ears, deeper down you stuff them, way less do you hear. Until one day you're deaf. Then it takes a proverbial earthquake to get you out. That's what happened to me in my drug addiction. So I don't know if I was able to really follow. All right. Well, this is Jessie Lee signing off. And keep your mind on praise. Keep your mind on love. Keep your mind on acceptance. Love, light, shalom.